everyone, it's Paola. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I am interviewing the amazing Kayla Rivera. So, Kayla, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about your book?
Yes, I would love to. Thank you again for having me on here with you. I'm very excited. I'm Kayla Rivera. I'm half Mexican, half British, and I grew up most of my life a little bit disconnected from the Mexican side. My dad didn't really teach me any Spanish. He didn't really teach me anything about the heritage. There's a lot of problems with my dad, but among them, that was one of the things. But as I got older, I started to reconnect with my Mexican heritage, and my abuelo, he was a big part of that. He taught me like more Spanish in 2 weeks than I learned like in 2 years in high school. I was like, whoa, makes a difference, like talking, So I had a really good time with that. And I've been a writer basically since I was like 6 or some obscenely young age. I just was like Sally the Serpent. That was my first hit, really. It was great picture book, 5 stars. I really enjoyed that, but I wasn't always a strong writer like before I really started to get into it. And because I realized I could have adventures and make stories through writing, it was difficult for me. But fortunately, my mom was really patient with me and consistent and worked really hard with me and stressed the need for education, and that really helped me, that consistent endeavor. And she was like, it's okay that it's hard, just keep going. And eventually I became a much stronger writer, and then my love of it fed it, and I kept growing and growing. And Cici Rios and the Desert of Souls is my debut book, Catching the Light, but that is a stunning cover by Mariel Ortiga. She did such a good job. It is about a 12-year-old girl named Cici Rios, who ends up having to go on an adventure to become a bruja to rescue her older sister from the criatura El Sombreron, who has stolen her away. Along the way, she creates a lot of good friends, and she steps into her own strength and realizes that maybe the empathy and the kindness that all of her town has always thought was weakness, because she had mercy on a lot of criaturas, that maybe those were strengths after all.
I love that. That cover is so stunning. Who did you write this book for?
It's a good question. I think that every book I write is primarily for me at first. I'm trying to understand something, feel something, chase some idea of some sort, and work things out for myself. Writing is very good therapy, oftentimes. But once I get past that stage, the initial like first few drafts, then I start to write to other people as well as myself. So I write to be understood at that point. And I think that I kind of wanted to write to two major groups, probably because I'm a halfie. So on one hand, I wanted it to feel like home and to be a celebration of Latinx culture and heritage. And I wanted it to be like, yeah, we can be the star of an amazing adventure. I wanted that. I wanted to put that out there. I wanted it to be a grand adventure for people like me, people like my sisters. And on the other hand, I also wanted it to reach out to people, and make it like a really fun experience of like, here, come share in my culture, even if it's not yours. I want you to feel like this is welcoming you in, bienvenidos, like come on in and see how amazing it can be to what we're like as well, and how we can connect despite maybe ways that you thought we weren't able to connect with each other.
I love that. That's so sweet. And I love how you speak to both, like to your heritage. What was the world building process like?
That's a fun story with this book. So at first, like Cece, I've never been a particularly strong plotter or world builder. When I first wrote the first draft or so of Cece was much more like that, where there was a lot of things that went unanswered, because I kind of like that not quite knowing how the world works feeling. But then of course, yeah, as I got my deal and I started doing revising, I had to like each revision layered in a lot more clarity, a lot more like, okay, we have to decide like who does this, and we have to answer this question, and things like that. So it actually took quite a while, but most of the things that you see in the book were there originally. I think Tsitsimil was one of the few that was added in later for some explanation, but I loved the richness that Tsitsimil's character brought in. And I am not pronouncing that as well as I should, FYI, just disclaimer, I know. I think that I started with just kind of like things from my abuelo's stories of growing up in northern Mexico for the setting. And I think that's why it's so powerful, is a lot of it was taken almost directly from him. I definitely put my own spin on them, what I thought would be cooler or like fun, or like I'm fascinated by this interpretation or this version of the legend. Sometimes I just operate by my own, I want to do this as well. So
That's the beauty of writing fantasy, right? Like, just you get to do whatever you want.
yeah, I like
I love
that.
that. So what's it like to have your debut coming out? You're into quarantine.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of people are like, oh, it must suck, like debuting in quarantine. And there's a lot of things that are not the way I hoped or expected they would be, or that I had imagined they would be. But at the same time, I'm like, what? I mean, it didn't happen 2 months into quarantine, which would have been significantly worse. I've had a year to figure out how to operate this way. And so I'm grateful for that, because I know people who had it harder in that way. But I'm also grateful in a weird way. I've found myself much more grateful for the experience than I have like disappointed or frightened, because I would love to have gone to some conferences, and like meet people and be on the other side of the table for once, like, oh wow, I'm the person people are reading, ooh, or I'm the person who's giving my thoughts on writing today, like that's a super fun experience. And I would still look forward to doing that in the future. But I think that I'm mostly just really grateful that it's given me something to look forward to throughout this past year, and that's been incredibly important in a lot of ways. Every time things get heavy or a little bit like, wow, this really feels like it's never gonna end, I can look forward to good emails about Cece sometimes. I've had something to count down to that's been cheerful and exciting, and something I've been working towards since I was 14 years old. So in a lot of ways, it's lemonade.
I love that. That's a great way to look at things. So if your book was a criatura that you featured in your book, or maybe that you didn't feature in your book, which one would it be?
Oh, that's such an exciting question. Oh, there's so many options. I think what I'd like to say is that Cicirios in the Desert of Souls, if it could be captured in a criatura, would be Coyote. Because I like, one of my favorite things about Coyote's character is that there's a lot of complexity, and yet at the heart, there's a lot of goodness. You understand him even when he makes big mistakes. You love him as he keeps trying to make restitution and grow as a person and find hope. And I think that a lot of that is something I like to explore in my writing, as well as particularly in this book, that like, yes, life is complicated and life is hard. And oftentimes you find that things are disappointing, or that people around you or the world isn't the way that you thought it was. And that can be really disappointing, but it also can be really hopeful. I think Coyote's complexity is something that can capture the complexity I hope is captured in this book.
I love that. That's such a wholesome way to describe your book. So, before we finish off, would you like to talk about your upcoming projects? What are you working on? What should we look forward to?
Yes. Okay. So I can't tell you everything about all of it, but I want to give you some little hints. So one of the things I'm working on is another entry into Cece's world. That, keep your fingers crossed that it becomes more than just a Word document. And in that story, I really want to take people into Devil's Alley and make Juana's character a little bit more explored as well. I think that there's a lot of exciting things that a lot of people who read the first one will be like, "Ah, that's answered in the sequel," like some kind of questions that you didn't need the answers in the first book, but you want them, and I want them, so I'm writing it. But my other project, I actually usually have like 4 projects going at a time. That's just kind of the person I am. Is I'm the most responsible, chaotic person you'll probably ever meet, you know? But the second one that I say is my other priority is a young adult fantasy. I'm really excited for that one. It's a little bit darker, it's a little bit older, but I think it has some really beautiful things I want to explore in it as well.
Oh my God, I'm so excited about the CC 2.0 book. Like that sounds super exciting. I cannot wait. I will leave links in the description below so that you can buy it from either Amazon or indie books and book depository and all the good things that pop up when you check Goodreads and you're like, get the book."
You get the book.
Those links
It's
will be
colorful.
down below. Look at the cover though. Like, isn't it so pretty? That enough?
Mhm.
That should
It
be
is. I mean,
enough.
look at that saturated color. That was my one request with the cover. I was like, please, color. I want all the colors.
I love that. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much, Kayla, for doing this with me.
Thank you and gracias.
I hope everybody enjoyed this interview and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Adios.